Thank you for the opportunity to the UAE Singapore Business Council, as well as the eminent speakers that were ahead of me. Very interesting presentation by Dr. Ibtesam as well. My hope is to quickly cover an introduction to Napier. We are a fairly old company in this business. We were actually the earliest pioneers of uh, healthcare technology way back in the 90s. So my attempt is to kindly to quickly give you a run through what we have done so far. The focus has always been on innovation, and we've used that to drive the internationalization in the last 10 years or so. And I'll also be touching briefly upon the value proposition that we provide in terms of the technology products. Uh, Internally within Napier, we believe we provide an incubator for all our various functions, and that's how we promote innovation internally. And that's how we've been constantly and consistently delivering innovation to the marketplace for both acute care hospitals as well as long-term care, nursing homes, home care, and some of the others. We proudly fly the Singapore flag in 9 markets. We are present from the Asia Pacific onwards, Australia, New Zealand. We are there obviously in Singapore, India, which is our development center. We're there in Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, where we have presence. We are in East Africa, while it does say Tanzania, we are present in Tanzania, Rwanda, and also Kenya. And definitely the United Arab Emirates, which is our headquarters for the Middle East regional headquarters. And I'll speak a little bit more about it later as well. We started our journey sometime in the 90s when we actually built, in those days, very interestingly, the then president of India was Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, who was a keen person wanting to bring space technologies into healthcare. So we launched telemedicine with a local hospital in Hyderabad. In those days, I'm talking of 2002, that's the picture that you see here. And since then, we've been working on that. But nothing has helped the cause of telemedicine as much as the last 2 years, where accessibility to healthcare became a big issue due to the pandemic. And till date, I think my personal view is the biggest challenge in healthcare is not the doctors, it's not the facilities, it's not the infrastructure, but more the accessibility. And personally, I feel telemedicine goes a long way in solving that problem for us. Because in the world today, even today, there are about 80% of the people who are not able to access healthcare because of them being in remote communities in large countries. Fast forward, I won't go through every one of them, but we've done some innovations. We, for example, launched Aviation Medicine in 2016. Today, the Napier EMR runs the licensing for all pilots and air traffic controllers that are registered with the Changi Airport, the Civil Aviation Authority. And we came out with the cloud instance way back in 2017, 2018. Today, a lot of our customers are on the cloud. It makes for a very cost-effective deployment, not to mention the fact that hospitals have, some of the smaller hospitals like the 50, 70 bedded hospitals have gone live in a matter of weeks, instead what used to previously take about 10 years or so with the HIS implementations. Sorry, 10 months or so, not years. My apologies. In 2020, with the onset of COVID, within a couple of weeks, we actually launched our own AI solution that would detect pneumonia based on the X-rays and the other imaging solutions. We then subsequently expanded it to include 13 other such conditions that could be read off the images that were made available. Very proud also to share that we continue to be the only non-American company in the US which has received a meaningful use stage 2 certification. For many of you who are in this business, you might recognize names such as the Epics and the Cerners, who were big beneficiaries of Obamacare on account of this certification. Napier happens to be one of the only non-American company in that certification list. So we're quite proud of our achievement there. Uh, with that as our arsenal, we started the internationalization. But before I talk about how we went about our internationalization, a very quick point that I think even Dr. Ibtesam mentioned in her uh, address. The Bloomberg report does track Singapore as one of the top countries where we get more bang for our buck the way we manage our healthcare system. And the Bloomberg index also looks at this expenditure of a country and also the life expectancy that it generates. Based on that, you can see that Singapore has a life expectancy of 83 years average, whereas just obviously US is always a comparison. They spend about 18% of their GDP on healthcare, whereas Singapore spends about 4%. So I think that does make Singapore a natural partner to UAE. Both of us are in the quest for the same kind of objectives, and some of the products that we build in Singapore are for the Singapore customers, and so some of those learnings are also automatically built in the technology that we provide to our other customers in other countries. Uh, how did we get into the market in the Middle East? We obviously looked at UAE very favorably because of the size of UAE, which is similar to Singapore, and also because of the progressive nature of policy making in UAE compared to the rest of the Middle East. Not surprisingly, the rest of the Middle East also looks up to UAE for ideas and so on. So we thought UAE is the right place. We are located in Dubai as our regional headquarters. We did our initial market study, and we looked at the acute care segment about 3 years ago as the place where we wanted to make a mark. And today I'm happy to report that we have some customers in the region that we can share with you later. Uh, Once we do that, we always work with customers on a preferential basis, what we call as alpha customers. And needless to say, we do provide them very favorable commercial terms, and the relationship is obviously very strategic to us as it is to them. Uh, we have a lot of partners. You can recognize most of the big names here. We were one of the earliest adopters of the Microsoft Azure cloud platform way back in 2014. And the AI is something that also appeals to all of them. We worked with the IBM team for the Watson solutions, which is quite famous in those days globally. What is our value proposition in the region? Napier's firm belief is that healthcare must be delivered on what we call as a care anywhere basis, which means even in places like larger countries, as a patient moves from one format of setting, clinical setting to another, their records must move seamlessly. In Singapore, we obviously were one of the earliest adopters of a nationwide EHR, and that did help us a lot. But most of our solutions are also therefore conceptualized on that basis, that someone coming into an acute care may eventually land up in the long-term care, and then may go to home care, and then maybe daycare and so on. So we take care of all of those process workflows in our HIS system, as also in our nursing home care and the long-term care, the rehabs, and some of the other solutions that we provide. Innovation, as always, is a cornerstone of what we do. But more importantly, we also measure ourselves very strictly on the ability to deliver a transformation to hospitals and nursing homes and home care providers. Some of the products, I don't want to go too much into this. We are a HIS vendor. That's how our life started in the early 90s. Subsequently adding on EMR in the first decade of our existence. Residential care, center-based care, home health care, transitions of care, the aviation medicine, and the AI, which we have been now providing for the last 2 years or so. That's kind of in a nutshell our products. What is our differentiator? Again, a busy slide. I won't want to go into every line of this, but We are in a unique position as Napier that operates in about 9 different markets ranging from Australia to Africa. So what it does is it exposes us to, as we build these products, to business practices of various hospitals, various home care, various nursing and residential care organizations. As we build out features for them in the software, we are then able to share it as a best business practices repository when we go into a new country or a new facility, for example. One of the things I would like to highlight is Singapore, for example, in the long-term care has come up with the enhanced nursing home standards. So when you buy the Napier nursing home solution or the home care solution, these standards, these processes, best business practices actually are built in. So you can get all of them. You can get a standard set of care plans that are available. Obviously, you can build your own, but that's kind of how we work in providing best business practices. All our customers are stakeholders and partners in our journey as we build these features. Needless to say, the modern tech stack guards against obsolescence. We believe someone who buys a Napier technology today for the next 8 to 10 years would not have to upgrade their technology at all. With that, I just want to use this last 1 minute to talk about security. In the uh, in the last 2 years or so, because of the pandemic, the number of security incidents have gone up by almost 200x. I'm not talking of 200% or 2x or whatever. I'm talking of 200x. For us, who supplies core technologies to hospitals and other providers, this therefore becomes very important for us to make sure that we protect them from ransomware and some of the other things. So we spend a significant portion of our R&D expenditure in trying to make sure that we work on the latest top 10 security issues that are there, and we consistently and constantly update the technology to do all of that. With that, I'm just going to stop and see if you have any questions that I might be able to answer. Back to you, Dr. Aitan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Karthik. I have one question for you, and it seems that you have an interesting IT solution, but my question to you is, how do you compete with the large top multinational companies in the GCC market?
I think in terms of our value proposition, I think there are large companies and there are smaller companies, but we have a very niche, in the market space that we operate in. We are recognized as the top Asian company for supply of HIS and the other core technologies that we provide. But that is in terms of the product itself. But if you look at what we do, the way we work, whenever we enter a new geography or we work with existing customers, they actually tell us the features that they want on a quarterly basis. We have an agile methodology that basically delivers it to them in the following quarter. That's how we protect technology from becoming obsolete. If you go back to the olden days, when you bought a technology or a license software from a vendor, you would probably want to upgrade it every 2 to 3 years and spend millions of dollars trying to do that. Today, with this kind of an approach, we are able to do that in probably a fraction of, say, $5,000 or $10,000 kind of upgrade, but more frequently, and that keeps them up to date. So I think innovation in a nutshell is probably what drives our partnership with our customers. At that point, it does not matter whether you're big or small, it only matters whether you're fast or slow.
Fascinating. Thank you very much. And with that, we will move to the second